Super convenient, cost-friendly, and just about everywhere you might need a place to stay. Those attributes led to the explosion of short-term rentals offered via online platforms such as Airbnb and VRBO over the past few years. But as problems began to emerge, from enabling so-called party houses to adding to the housing crunch, some municipalities are now trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube. Let's find out how that's going with Jordi Dent. He is Executive Director of the Federation of Metro Tenants Associations. Devel Morrison, Airbnb superhost and broker at Bosley Real Estate. JJ Fuser, a researcher working with the Fairbnb Coalition and one of the authors of its most recent report called Increasing Toronto's Vacancy Rate. And Mariana Valverde, urban law and governance infrastructure researcher and a professor of socio-legal studies at the University of Toronto. It's good to have everybody around our table tonight for this conversation. Devel, I want to go to you first.
Sure.
Because, okay, you're super, right? You're a super host.
I am a super host.
I always thought I was a super host, but apparently you're a super host.
You are a super host, Steve.
Gee, thanks. Thanks, Devel. You run a brokerage agency as well, of course, in Toronto. Or
I don't run. I'm a broker at Bosley Real Estate.
I was promoting you. Anyway, why'd you want to become an Airbnb superhost?
So I'm also a real estate investor. For me, it's about I need to prepare for my retirement. I'm single, I live on my own, and there's a great opportunity for me to help pay my bills. So before I was doing a long-term tenant, and now I'm using Airbnb because I had a bad experience with my last long-term tenant. I also have Airbnbs in Prince Edward County as well that I co-own with a number of friends, and really all of us are trying to bulk up our retirement funds because, as we've seen in many weeks in the stock market, that can be a little bit risky.
Right.
And it's really important for us to diversify. We can't rely on the government to pay for our retirement.
So you've got 2 locations?
Yes, 2 locations.
And do you find that the current way in which you do your business is better than being in charge of a long-term tenancy?
Actually, I do that too.
Oh, you do that too?
I do everything.
You are quite an entrepreneur.
Yes, so I have. I've got properties with long-term tenants, and I've got properties with short-term tenants. So I have a bit of a mix. Again, It's about diversifying.
Gotcha. Mariana, I've heard this expression, cowboy e-capitalism. What is that?
E-capitalism refers to the fact that profits are being made not by buying factories and making actual stuff, but by developing or buying apps and algorithms and data sets. And the cowboy part is that the corporations, and I think it's important to distinguish between the corporations in California and then ordinary people who are here, trying to make a living. But the corporations came in and started operating as if this was the Wild West, hence the cowboy, even though there were already regulations in terms of business licensing and zoning.
Do you think it is like the Wild West out there right now?
Well, yes, it is, because even cities that have fairly decent rules that do allow for people to make some money out of their residential properties, but they regulate it in the way that any other business is regulated. Even in cities that have good regulations, cities and municipalities just do not have the enforcement capacity or the capacity to impose any significant fines. So in so many cities around the world, including in Barcelona, where I'm from, there's fairly good rules that allow Airbnb. They do not ban it, but they regulate it. But enforcement is a huge problem, in part because Airbnb will not hand over their data that's in their database.
Indeed. Let's, since you brought this up, we now have regulations here in the provincial capital, and I want to just go through some of them here. I think it was in 2017 that the City of Toronto passed a new short-term rental bylaw. Here's where we're at right now. Hosts must register with the city and pay $50 annually, plus 4% municipal accommodation tax on each booking. A rental cannot exceed 180 days a year or 28 consecutive days. And it's also got to be your primary residence. Now, this was, Jordi, I'll get the tenant guy in here right now. This was touted as a major victory for tenants across Ontario. Do you agree?
Yeah, it is a major victory. We're in the grips of a pretty brutal housing crisis right now, both in Toronto and in the GTA in general. In fact, pretty much all over Ontario. And again, this was a great victory. The big issue that we're always worried about, though, is enforcement. You've seen in the last couple of weeks heavy enforcement of transit fares. You saw heavy enforcement of cannabis shops. But we're not necessarily certain that the city's going to treat this the same way, and that's what we're hoping for.
JJ, the new regs, what do you think?
I think they hit a lot of the right notes. They do permit home sharing, which was how the business started out. And we think rightly insists that home sharing take place in a host's primary residence. And they importantly protect secondary suites. So basement apartments, nanny suites, where a tenant of those suites can participate in the short-term rental market, but the landlord can't. That protects a really important source of affordable housing for Torontonians. The one thing that we, in other jurisdictions, we recommend setting the maximum stay to below 180 days. That seems like a very long time to be renting out something that's actually your principal residence, but it's all heading in the right direction, and we're excited that we're heading into enforcement. Toronto's regulations are pointing in the direction of platform accountability.
Platform accountability means what?
Basically, a legally binding agreement with Airbnb, where Airbnb will only list properties that are legal and take some responsibility if they're making money off of illegal listings.
Okay. Can I get your view on what you think of these new regs in the city?
Of course, I don't like them. I don't like the fact that I understand why they decided that tenants should have the right to Airbnb their particular space, but as a landlord, that kind of contracts the landlord-tenant board rules, where you're not supposed to sublease for something more than you're actually leasing the space out for, number one. Number two, because I was actually a condo board member, that causes a problem, because with most of the condo declarations, you're not allowed to rent out your condo on any platform for less than 6 months. And so what you end up having is a tenant who's renting out their space, and there's a lot of parties happening there. It's creating a terrible environment for the condo owners who live there, but the landlord has no idea that it's going on. And so because of the rules of the landlord-tenant board, and that landlord can't kick that tenant out, it's just a big problem.
Do you have any, in Prince Edward County, do they have regulations in place there?
So they're undergoing licensing. So they just started the licensing process, so we've applied for the license. We're waiting for our inspection so that we can pay our licensing fee.
Do you find these regulations, though, even in Toronto, do you find them onerous?
For example, in Prince Edward County, I'm fine with regulations. That's great. They're allowing us to do it. Apply for a license. You get it. You're moving on. I find in Toronto they are onerous. I find that they're onerous because, like I said, I'm a single person. I'm paying my bills. I have a basement apartment. And I own the property. I'm paying the mortgage on it. I'm paying the property taxes on it. Why shouldn't I be allowed to control what I do in my own place? And on top of it, there's other ancillary businesses that are making money from all Airbnb hosts, superhosts, whatever. I'm going into the local Kitchen Stuff Plus to purchase lots of bedding and items for my Airbnbs. I'm going into the local bedding store, again, to purchase more sheets. So, people sort of look at it as what's being taken away, but nobody actually looks at all of the other ancillary businesses, not all e-businesses, that are being created or helped by the fact that people are renting their spaces out.
Mariana, you want to come back on that?
Yeah, first of all, I don't think we actually have the facts to show that it's primarily the tenants in those condo buildings that are
No, it's not
causing
all
the
tenants at all.
problems with
Absolutely.
Airbnb. And we do know that there's some people, probably operating at a bigger scale than you are, who are buying up large numbers of condo units and then putting those owners on the condo board in order to prevent the condo board from having a rule excluding Airbnbs. So that's just to set the record straight. But the larger point that I think needs to be made is that Airbnb has been, putting out all kinds of advertising that makes it seem that it's your God-given right to exact as much money as possible from whether it's your residence or a place you own. And urban planning, ever since the beginning, has been based on making a distinction between residential uses and commercial uses. They pay different kinds of taxes. And I could pay my mortgage off, instantly if I opened up a bar in my front room.
But you can't.
But you can't. And I think people understand why. And when you're using your residence for a commercial purpose, which the new regulations do allow, then you should be subject to a certain tax, you should be subject to licensing, and perhaps there could even be some parts of the city in which it's not allowed, just like some businesses can't
Let me pick up on
operate.
that if I can, Mariana, because, I mean, one of the difficulties, I guess, with this story is that we don't exactly know how many Airbnb locations there are out there. I guess the estimates are like 20,000, but some people say there's more than that.
So there's
you wanna
about
jump in?
18,000 Airbnb rentals, well, Airbnb and VRBO rentals
how do you know?
in the city of Toronto.
How do you know?
Because there's a website that skims the data from Airbnb, VRBO, and HomeAway.
But Airbnb doesn't give out that information. So how do you know?
Because of this other company that skims the data.
There's an open source data group called Inside Airbnb, and this is what they have to say. And we got a little map here that we want to show, and I'll describe this in some detail for those who are listening on podcast and can't see this map. But essentially, we got a map of a bit of the 416 here, the city of Toronto. It's mostly downtown, and there are red dots wherever there are known to be entire homes/apartments Airbnb-ing. And boy, oh boy, those red dots are everywhere. And they are really very deeply concentrated in the inner core, which I guess is sort of south of College Street down to the waterfront. If you look for green dots, those are private homes. And there's a lot of green dots around. Not as concentrated, but there's a lot of green dots. And for shared rooms, next to nothing. Very little of that. I guess, JJ, let me ask you to react to that map. As you look at it, what story, in your view, does that tell?
The best is when you turn that into put that on a time scale and you watch the creep of the red dots as regulations are, as we wait for regulations to be actually enforced, you see a lot of spread. So I think you're quite right. The predominant form of Airbnb and short-term rentals in Toronto right now are entire home listings, and for us, a lot of those are, we tried to take a look at these data and, to the best of our ability, come up with an estimate of how many of those are principal residences, how many would comply with Toronto's regulations, and how many wouldn't. So there are about 7,300, we estimate, entire home listings that are non-compliant with Toronto's regs. And if even half of those came back into the long-term market as, if they were sold or if they were rented out long-term, we could see a big relief in the vacancy rate.
I do have to ask you, though, how would you have any idea about how many homes are going according to Hoyle and how many aren't?
So we took a look at, actually, inside Airbnb's data. We got a data set from Murray Cox, the housing activist who puts that data up, and we can link listings with hosts, and if hosts have more than one entire home under their offered, then we know that that's not compliant, and we can estimate how many days those listings are offered. If they're offered for more than 180 days, then they're also non-compliant. So, we would love a look at the real data, because Airbnb has a complete insight into this, obviously. But I think the estimates inside Airbnb uses are pretty conservative, and so we feel like we're, one of the things there was a hearing at the local planning appeals tribunal about these regulations, and we had to come to some consensus on the facts. And our estimates were actually a little bit on the conservative side.
Okay. Jordi, let me ask you, again, as the tenants guy here, how many of these units would you say used to be long-term housing?
It's a little bit hard to say because a lot of them are in condos and some of those are new. But we hear about this all the time on our hotline, and it's you spend a little bit of time there, it's end times. A lot of people are getting evicted. A lot of people are being pushed out for this, and a lot of people, get evicted for the landlord to move in, and then they go online and they find their unit on the Airbnb platform. So the numbers we don't really know, and again, we're all trying to play a guessing game here, a bit of a whack-a-mole with the data that's available. But I definitely, we definitely know that a lot of people are being evicted for this. Yeah. We definitely know that a lot of the new stock is not going to the rental market as it should be.
So this is the issue for you, the evictions and the fact that you're losing rental housing stock.
It is end times out there. Again, I know for a lot of people that are pretty stable, it's okay. But to us, this is pretty much just a question of people versus profit, or infrastructure versus commercial stuff. Yeah.
Let's show, we on top of page 4 here, is that right, Sheldon? And Patricia, let's show this next chart. Okay, this is long-term housing units in Toronto converted into short-term rentals. This helps amplify the point that was just made by Jordi. And again, for those listening on podcasts, this chart essentially shows explosive growth in entire homes/apartments converting from long-term into short-term, and private rooms just barely any increase in that at all. But if you look over the past, say, 3.5, 4 years, it's gone from essentially nothing to almost 6,000 entire homes or apartments. And, well, all right, JJ, follow up on that if you would. The implications of this are what?
Well, we see the effect of the financial incentives and the lack of regulations on this graph. I think we try to estimate how much more revenue you get from renting a property on Airbnb versus a long-term rental is about 2 to 3 times more, depending. What's happening, if you look across the board at Airbnb hosts in Toronto, the majority of them are actually compliant. They're sharing their homes or they're renting out their whole homes occasionally. But the piece representing the bulk of that green area, permanently taken out of the long-term housing market, Airbnbs, that accounts for the lion's share of Airbnb's revenue too. Something like 73% of Airbnb's revenue comes from non-compliant entire homes. And that's what's driving the lawsuits and the foot dragging. It's just there's no financial incentive for Airbnb to comply. And for hosts too, we need sort of those strong regulatory boundaries to make sure that these homes get used for long-term rentals.
Okay, but having said that, Jordi, I appreciate that you're here representing the interests of tenants, but Devel is a tax-paying, proud citizen who's got a home, who's just trying to make a little extra money on the side. Are you essentially saying to her, we think what you're doing is ruining the rental housing market and causing bigger societal problems?
Well, I don't want to single out her because it's not.
I was kind of hoping you would because it would make for good TV. But anyway.
Yeah. No, look, again, I think you have to look at the longer term trends and just ask, what is housing for? Because this is a really important thing for us. Housing doesn't just spring up like a mushroom. There's a lot of public money that goes into housing. It's not just private development. There's development charges, there's tax rebates. Probably about 90% of the housing in Toronto was built with federal money from large-scale federal supply programs that ran in the last century.
So we all have an interest in this.
We all have an interest, and we all paid for a lot of it. And we're not paying so folks can make money. We're actually paying as part of infrastructure. If I cut off the water supply during a drought, I could make a lot of money, selling water. But we don't allow that. We don't allow that for a very good reason, because people are going to die. And unfortunately, that's what's happening right now in our housing market. Again, a lot of people are staple, but our shelters are bursting at the seam. You've got hundreds of people dying on the streets of Toronto right now. We've gone through a pretty brutal period over the last couple of years in the city. And if you talk to any tenants, like we do every day at my agency, it is end times out there. It is really scary for a lot of people, right? A lot of people are worried about getting evicted. A lot of people can't find any place to live. You had 50,000 people leave Toronto into Ontario last year, more than came from other parts of Ontario into Toronto. And this is the long-term trend. The city's kind of dying right now. And this is why it's so important for us to ensure that we actually have rental stock as part of the infrastructure. It's critical.
I have to challenge that a little bit. You say the city's dying right now. There's more cranes in the skies of this city than the next 3 or 4 cities combined.
Absolutely. And who's in them? Who's in the buildings? There's vacant units everywhere.
So the city's problematic for some people, but not for everybody.
The city's problematic for a lot of people. Again, if the idea of Toronto is a bunch of towers in the sky with nobody living in them, they're all investment vehicles where you hold a unit for 2 years and then sell it, or you turn it into a hotel. Great, Toronto's going to be a great city in about 10 years. But I don't think the majority of people want that. I think people want to live here and they want their communities.
Well, let's do a real life example here. Mariana, your son was apparently apartment hunting recently. How did that go?
Well, it took it took months and months for he and his partner, and I should say my son is gainfully employed, and so actually has a good job with benefits and could show a landlord that he's responsible and so on. It took them months. He and his partner, they ended up finding what seemed like a nice basement apartment, and it is nice, but it's a basement apartment.
What part of town?
East York, for $1,600 a month. And given the situation, they thought, well, why not? And of course, what struck me is that I think that's somewhat ridiculous for a basement apartment in a post-war bungalow.
Too much money.
But the people who own both the apartment above and the basement apartment could have been putting it on Airbnb. So I felt like I should be grateful to them that they weren't doing that, which is ridiculous. Because if you can make $1,600 a month as a landlord for a basement apartment in East York, I'm sorry, that's a pretty good income. And so for me, one of the key things is that urban planning should mean something. The public policy interest should mean something. And for a long time, the city was kind of slow with innovation and land use planning. But, from the 70s on, we got live-work lofts, which was a breach of the old rule that you live in one place and you work in another. And that was innovative and interesting. Now we have the possibility of having some residential units in alleyways. Well, that's innovation too. And certainly some type of Airbnb type of thing is innovation, and that means you're combining a residential use when you're in it with a commercial use when you're not in it, and you're then renting it out. So it's a lot like a live-work unit or something like that. Well, that innovation is good, but it's got to be regulated. And the example that I gave earlier of, well, I could make a lot of money if I opened a bar in my front room or a speakeasy in my basement. Well, okay, yes, I can make money, but there's a reason why the whole discipline of urban planning for 100 years has been devoted to the principle that in a city especially, you cannot do whatever you like with your property.
Understood. Let's go to, we run the risk, JJ, sometimes of something's an issue in Toronto, it's an issue in Ottawa, we assume that's the way it is over the whole province of Ontario. Is that the case?
You're seeing the housing market, as Jordi commented earlier, the housing market is tightening up in most places in Ontario. In Ottawa now, it's between 1% and 2%, which is well below the healthy rate, the vacancy rate of 3%. And most municipalities are insisting that short-term rentals only take place in Ontario, in principal residences. So I think our rules in Toronto were tested at the ONB, what used to be known as the OMB,
Ontario Municipal Board,
and were found to be sound planning. And I think that really does kind of set a good precedent, a healthy precedent for other Toronto municipalities.
Well, let's talk about enforcement for a second here, because at the end of the day, it gets down to that. You can pass all the regulations you want, but if no one enforces them, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
Here's what Toronto City Councillor Joe Cressy had to say about all of this. He said, staff, meaning folks who work for the city, anticipate enforcement will begin this summer. However, this system will work best if large operators such as Airbnb cooperate with the city to ensure that listings on their platforms comply with the regulations. We know that taking a, quote, whack-a-mole approach, where city staff will have to investigate each individual listing, won't be the most effective route. If Airbnb was serious about improving housing affordability and community safety, they would delist non-compliant units immediately. Nothing is stopping them from removing unpermitted listings. They can and they should. And Councillor Cressy went on to mention that Council has approved significant penalties, up to $100,000 apparently, that will apply to anybody who doesn't comply with the bylaw. Okay, what do we think of all of this? Devel, you want to chime in?
I think before we get to all the Airbnb stuff, I think we need to go back and think, why are landlords going towards Airbnb in the first place? So we need to go back and look at the Landlord-Tenant Board rules. Those Landlord-Tenant Board rules are so stringent in favor of tenants that for a lot of landlords, they feel that they don't have any control over their own property. And so that's one of the reasons why they've turned to something like Airbnb. So I feel like if we do this knee-jerk reaction of let's blame Airbnb for everybody else's problems without actually going back and looking what's causing some of the problems, we are doing a disservice to everybody.
You know, everybody hates the Landlord and Tenant Act, though. I hear as many landlords complain about it as tenants.
So for example, one of the reasons why I'm doing Airbnb in my basement apartment is because I've had a long-term tenants for 10 years, and most of them were great. But then all of a sudden I had that bad experience where I had a tenant who decided to turn the power off on me on my house upstairs. Well, that's not very fair. And
How did that happen?
well, because they have access to the box. And so there's no rule that protects me, the landlord, from something like that happening in my own home.
How'd you get them out?
Well, luckily, for some reason, I'm a nice landlord, and once someone was living there for 4 years, I'd never increased the rent. I just kept the rent the same because I thought, well, you're living in my home, you're being nice, we'll just keep the rent where it is. We won't make any increases. So after that happened, I went, okay, here's your 60 days notice, here's your 1.8% increase, and then 30 days later, they gave me notice and they left. And so once they left, that's when I started doing Airbnb. Because I thought, you know what, let me try this out since I've had a bad experience. Now, that being said, I have other tenants in other properties who are perfectly nice, who don't cause any problems, we're always on good terms. So, you know, I realize that not every tenant is bad and not every landlord is bad either. And so I think that's something important to know. You know, when my tenants move in, I give them a bottle of Prosecco as a welcome gift. I give them Christmas gifts every Christmas. To me, it's about karma. Right? So I'm trying to foster a good relationship. But I realize not everybody's doing that. But again, we're taking 5% of the bad apples, be they landlords or tenants, and we're creating policies based on 5% of the bad people. And so the same thing goes with Airbnb. I understand you're talking about corporations that are turning this into a corporation, but there's a lot of people who are doing it to fund themselves. When I look at, let's say, a lot of the people who own Airbnbs in Prince Edward County, a lot of them actually live on their property. They're doing it on a property on the side. And again, it's helping to fund their existence. They're not evil people, and you know they're getting a license to do it.
Well,
but that's what I'm saying is that you know not everybody is bad.
Mariana.
well, I don't think anybody here is saying that landlords in general are evil or people who rent their space out on Airbnb are evil. I don't think anybody's saying that. But I think it's really important to make a distinction between some ordinary person, like me, for instance, if I decided to put the bedrooms that my kids used to be in, now that they're grown up, on Airbnb, well, that's one thing. And I do think that should be regulated. But the corporation Airbnb has a really bad history, particularly when it comes to never sharing their data with cities. So here, back to Councillor Cressy's comment, he says, I think quite naively, oh, the system would work better if only Airbnb were to share their data with the city. Well, don't wait for some big corporation in San Francisco to share their data with the city of Toronto. Force them by law. Tell them they cannot operate unless they share their data. Then maybe we'll get somewhere.
But hold on a second. It's not just Airbnb. So one of the challenges is that when we have this conversation about short-term rentals, we only talk about Airbnb. And it happens to be that Airbnb happens to be the only one that's actually in conversations with a lot of different community officials. The VRBO, the Home Away, the Flip Key, all of the other people actually refuse to be part of the conversation. So they actually refuse to do anything at all. Airbnb is actually going in as part of the conversation with some of these community leaders, whereas the other platforms aren't doing that at all. And they're a private company. Why should they share their data? I mean, that's why these other companies exist, whether it's inside Airbnb or I happen to use airdna.co, that's why they exist, to skim the data and make money from this service.
Here's what Airbnb had to say about all this. I guess we offered them a chance to come on the program, and they sent this comment instead. They said, home sharing and vacation rentals have always been an important part of Canada's tourism economy, and today, regular people in communities large and small are making extra money sharing their space. Across Airbnb and around the world, we support regulations for home sharing that balance affordability concerns with the right of everyday people to share their homes. That is why we have shared comprehensive data and detailed information about our community with the City of Toronto throughout the regulatory process. The City of Toronto has not yet implemented its licensing and registration system, and we have been meeting regularly with the City to assist in implementing the rules by their spring 2020 deadline. Okay, they say they are, you're laughing, but they say they are complying. So, you happy?
Right. So we actually looked at that when we ran the data on how many Airbnb listings were compliant with City of Toronto regs after those regs were upheld by the tribunal. And it's about 60%. In Vancouver, which uses voluntary compliance, so the company urges hosts, please obey the law. You see that go up to another 15% maybe. But the problem, as Mariana has said, that we're dealing with is commercialized Airbnb, the so-called ghost hotels, where we see problems with community safety, neighborhood disruption, even violence. And that's, we're not going to see compliance unless Airbnb knows exactly which properties those are, and they could just share that data with the city, and enforcement would become relatively simple and straightforward.
Let's, with less than 5 minutes to go here, I want to put another troubling issue on the table here, and that is, I believe Airbnb has announced now, Jordi, that it will limit the number of under 25s from booking entire homes in Canada because of the fact that, three kids ended up dead, right, at a recent thing. And do you think this will be enough to curb the so-called house party phenomenon that's out there?
No, not at all. I think this is mostly just window dressing and PR campaigning. Frankly, it's kind of discriminatory. Like the idea that this is just children being violent, it's not the issue. The issue is that there's no attachment to the community. Whether you live there for a long period of time, you're not going to get involved in that kind of nefarious activity. But if it's just a hotel, you're not going to really have any incentive to care for the community. And that you hear that time and time again from a lot of the other actors in this, that Airbnbs are just kind of temporary party houses. And I think Airbnb is kind of recognizing that's a problem for them, and that's why they're putting these regulations, but I don't think it's going to do anything.
Let me ask Devel, would you rent one of your places to like 6 20-year-olds?
So one of the reasons why I'm happy to rent an Airbnb that is in my house is because you can tell from the pictures that it's a basement apartment. I actually would not want to have a house and put that on Airbnb because of that problem. I do like the fact that after the shooting, they came up with the rules to say that they would limit people under that certain age, 25, as well as renting from in the same city. Because when I talk to my friends, 15 and 16-year-olds, what they tell me is they're taking a credit card and they are throwing a party at somebody's place. And the 15 and 16-year-olds in Toronto are partying at somebody's random house or condo. And as an Airbnb owner, I don't want that either.
Yeah.
That's not good for anybody.
But I mean, I work with a lot of criminologists, and when this rule came out, they were all laughing. They were saying, right, how easy would it be for the 23-year-olds to get their 26-year-old siblings to actually book the place for them? So, I mean, it's very questionable. The other thing is that by imposing a quite artificial and possibly illegal age limit, they're collecting more data, because people are going to have to say how old they are when they book. And Airbnb is in the data business. They don't own hotels. They're in the data business. That's why they don't want to share it with the city. And that's why they have to be compelled to share it with the city, because data is what they're about.
Gotcha. I'm literally down to 2 minutes here, and I wanted to just, last night TVO aired a documentary called Airbnb Dream or Nightmare, and for a Calgary couple, it was the latter. We're going to take a look at what they came home to, and then I got a question for you. Sheldon, roll it if you would.
We walked in with the police, and I just like we were just both like lost in this like, holy cow, what happened to our home.
He said he was here for a wedding.
It was horrible. It was nightmarish. We saw used condom wrappers, used condoms, just left in like food containers, just strewn around. Blood, semen, vomit, like nothing looked the same. We had a beautiful cowhide skin rug. It was completely balled up with all sorts of condiments and human fluids, and there's no doubt about it that there was like sex happening all over our home, drugs happening all over our home. It's just unbelievable.
Devel, tell me that's never happened to you.
It hasn't, but so for example, what happens with Airbnb is Airbnb has insurance, so they can pay for that damage. But as an owner, if I rent it out on VRBO, there's no insurance. So that damage does not get covered. In Toronto, as I mentioned, I've got a basement apartment. In Prince Edward County, my risk is stagettes, actually. Yeah,
Women.
like bridal parties, stagettes. That's
Oh,
the biggest
really?
risk.
Because why?
Because they party like that. And so that's what most of the Prince Edward County owners are most afraid of renting their places is stagettes, because they drink and they go crazy and they cause a lot of damage.
So take the last 30 seconds here and give some advice to anybody watching who wants to get into this racket.
It still works. It helps pay for your retirement, does help make some money, extra money, which I think is a great thing. Obviously, you want to be a good corporate citizen as well, too, so I don't feel that I'm hurting the rental market by trying to make a living for myself. I think it's terrible that people are trying to tell other people what they should do with the property that they own when they're paying the mortgage and they're paying the property taxes.
That's DeVille Morrison. We thank her and Mariana Valverde and Jordi Dent and JJ Fuser for coming into TVO tonight and sharing their views on this fascinating phenomenon that's happening all across the place. Thanks, everybody.
Great, thank
you.
Okay, thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.